Hello everybody, I'm Mo of Many Colors, and I am happy to welcome you to my story time. I'm so glad that you've decided to join me today. We're going to read a book donated by the Book Fairy Pantry Project. You can find all of their information on Facebook, and I would absolutely love it if you and your parents hopped on over there and checked it out and find out how you can help distribute new and gently used books to your local food pantries. So tonight we're going to read a book called Muffin Dragon. Muffin Dragon, written by Stephen Cosgrove, illustrated by Robin James, a serendipity book. Dedicated to the memory of my parents, Marge and Pat Cosgrove. Neither lived to see me succeed, but both instilled in me a tenacious spirit that lives on forever and ever. Beyond the horizon, farther than far, in the middle of the crystal sea, is a beautiful island called Serendipity. Serendipity is an island filled with a variety of wonders, castles and cottages filled with peasants and kings. In a far corner of the poorest of the poor on the island in Serendipity stood the poorest of the poor castles. Everything was poor here, including the villagers who lived in the castle. They were happy here, poor but happy. They didn't have much, but they didn't need much, for they took the greatest of pride in all that they did. They took the greatest of pride in the baking and selling of muffins. Not just any muffins, but the most delicious, delectable muffins in all of the lands on the island of Serendipity. Every morning after the muffins were baked and still warm from the ovens, the villagers would load them onto their wagon. Then they would hitch up their only horse, an old dappled mare by the name of Daisy, to the wagon and slowly creak across the drawbridge. The worn, dusty road that led the villages The worn, dusty road led to villages that dotted the countryside like the spots on the old horse. It was in the villages that the muffins would be sold, and sold very quickly, for these were no ordinary muffins. These muffins were better than the best muffins. Now the kindly folk that lived in the castle should have been richer than rich, but all the money they made selling the muffins had to be spent buying flour, sugar, milk, and eggs. The most expensive thing they had to buy was the kindle wood, which was desperately needed to feed the gigantic ovens wherein they baked the muffins. Every day was the same. Early in the morning, long before the rooster woke, the crow woke to the crow. I'm having a hard time tonight, guys. Bear with me. Early in the morning, long before the rooster woke to crow the sun up over the hill, the head baker, who was also the king, would feed the fires with all the kindle wood that had been bought the day before. As the ovens were heating up, he would tend to the other baking chores. He would carefully mix all the ingredients, the eggs, flour, and sugar, into the only mixing bowl, which was cracked. He would mix, whisk, and whip all into a sugary, thick batter that he would ladle into the muffin tins. As he mixed more, his helper would slip the muffin tins into the oven to bake and bake until they were perfect in every way. Then, while they were still hot from the oven, the muffins would be loaded onto the wagon, while Daisy was being hitched up, and the process would start all over again. Things were not good here, but at least they weren't bad. Not bad, that is, until one day there appeared at the castle a great and monstrous dragon. Now this was not your everyday, run-of-the-mill dragon. This was an enormous, slightly overweight, muffin-munching dragon. With crumbs still on his face from the muffins he'd eaten at the last castle he'd visited, the dragon came waddling down the hill, right up to the drawbridge. The castle folk, fearing that this might be a villager-munching dragon, ran inside and braced the crude plank castle gates. The Muffin Dragon took a long, deep, snurfy sniff. "Ah," he rumbled in a dragon-like purr. "I smell muffins." I have a new light and it's very warm, so I'm going to turn it off so that I can comfortably finish this book for us. And I might not be as bright, but I'll be more comfortable, and that is always way more important. Let's see what else I can do. There we go. That's a little better. All right, where were we? Okay, so the Muffin Dragon, he rumbled in a deep dragon-like purr, I smell muffins. From the smell of things, this was a perfect place for a muffin-munching dragon to stay. He stuffed himself beneath the bridge and unpacked his pillow, his pajamas, and the picture of his pet, a pony he called Pearl. Then he brushed his large, crumb-crushing teeth, kissed the picture of the pony, laid his head down on the down-filled pillow, and fell fast asleep, dreaming of the treats to come. The next morning, the castle folk popped open the window shutters and, seeing nothing, assumed that the dragon was gone. Breathing a deep sigh of relief, the baker, who was also the king, began preparing for another day. Later, the baking done, the castle folk again loaded their only wagon overflowing with hot, steaming muffins. The wagon loaded, the gates creaked open, the hinges squealing loudly. As you would imagine, the noise of the squeaking, rusty hinges on the gate woke the soundly sleeping dragon. "Foo sniffle," he muttered. "What's that?" "What's that?" He yawned once, stretched twice, and peeked over the side of the worn wooden bridge. There, clomping through the castle gates, was Daisy, pulling the wagon filled with sumptuous, mouth-watering muffins. See him peeking over the bridge? He ripped off his pajamas, slicked back his scales, and leapt up onto the bridge. With flames broiling from his mouth and his nostrils puffing smoke, he roared, "Stop, or I shall burn up your drawbridge like so many dried sticks in a barbecue." The driver, just as frightened as could be, asked, "What do you want?" "Want?" the Muffin Dragon rumbled. "I don't want. I demand. Every time you cross my drawbridge, you shall pay me 10 muffins as your toll, your payment to get across my bridge." But, stuttered the driver, "this isn't your bridge. This drawbridge belongs to the baker, who is also the king." "Well," said the dragon slyly, burping a bit of smoke, "if I burn it up, it won't be anyone's drawbridge, will it?" After short discussion with the baker, who was also the king, the driver agreed to give the dragon his toll of 10 muffins. For the baker had little enough money to buy firewood and supplies, let alone to build a new drawbridge. Oh, there's the mean dragon. There he is, trying to get him. You see him? It's awful. It's not very nice. From then on, every time the wagon crossed the drawbridge, both coming and going, the driver gave the dragon 10 fluffy, flavorful muffins. With crumbs falling like snowflakes in the winter, the dragon would sit beside the drawbridge, contentedly gorging himself on the scrumptious, mouth-watering, sugary muffins. This would have gone on to this very day, except for one major problem. The dragon was eating so many muffins that the driver did not have enough to sell in order to buy all the supplies that were needed to make more muffins. Every day the driver and Daisy would return with fewer and fewer supplies, and one day they returned with nothing at all. The wagon was empty save for the 10 muffins needed to pay the dragon's toll. This is not going well for this dragon or the baker, who's also the king. The next morning, the head baker, who was also the king, woke as usual, but that was as usual as it got. There was no kindlewood to burn in the stoves to fire the ovens. There was no sugar, no flour, nor one single egg to crack in the bowl that could be whisked and whipped into batter. There was nothing to put in the muffin tins, nothing to bake. With a tear in his eye, the baker, who was also the king, sat on a pile of empty flour sacks and muttered, "I have no kindlewood for a fire. I have no supplies to bake any muffins. Without muffins, the dragon will burn the drawbridge down. What am I to do?" Very sad. The same morning the dragon woke, took off his pajamas, kissed the picture of his pony, brushed his teeth, slicked down his scales, and prepared for another day of muffin munching. He sat on the drawbridge and waited and waited and waited some more. No wagon came, therefore no muffins came, and the dragon's quite empty stomach began to rumble, grumble, and growl. For a time he ate the crumbs that had fallen from the day before, but the birds and a squirrel had taken all but the crummiest of crumbs. "No muffins," he muttered. "Where are my muffins?" Finally, he thumped across the drawbridge and he opened the massive gates that weren't even locked. The monstrous, muffin-munching dragon waddled up and down the halls, following smells of baking past. Finally, he rumbled into the bakery itself. "Muffins," he roared. "Where are my muffins? I've been waiting and waiting. It has only been out of kindness that I haven't burned the drawbridge down. Now, just where are my muffins?" I was being very rude. Never be this rude. Never be rude. The head baker, who was also the king, walked up to the dragon and looked him right in the eye. "Mr. Dragon," he said, just as brave as could be, "I'm a very poor baker, living in a poor land, in a poor castle indeed. Before you came, the muffins I made barely allowed me to buy the kindlewood and supplies I needed to make more muffins. Now that I have to give you so many muffins, I can't afford to buy kindlewood, and our ovens have no heat. Without heat, I can't bake any muffins." The dragon was sad beyond belief. He could have just burnt the drawbridge down and moved on to another castle. But the muffins made here were truly the best of the best and the better. Whatever were they to do? The dragon. They're contemplating. Maybe they'll work together. It was then that the muffin-munching dragon came up with the most marvelous and ingenious of plans. "I have it," he roared. "I can have my muffins and eat them too. And even you, poor kindly baker, who is also the king, will have more than enough for the sale of your muffins to make more and more muffins." That very day, the dragon packed his pillow, his pajamas, and the picture of his pet pony, and he moved to a new home. Where did he go? Where did he stay? How did he save the day? I don't know. Let's find out. Well, from that day forward, the Muffin Dragon lived in the bakery where he lolled about, billowing flame from his mouth, heating with ease the massive ovens. With the money he saved from not having to buy expensive kindlewood, the baker, who was also the king, could easily afford to leave a generous stack of mouth-watering muffins within easy reach of a dragon's great paw. While heating up the ovens with a lot of style and grace, the Muffin Dragon smiles a smile with crumbs upon his face. Last picture. The end. That was a really good book. And I think the story here is trying to tell us that if we work together instead of only working for ourselves, everybody gets to be a little bit happier. Well, I hope that you enjoyed my story today. It's just about time for me to go, but I would love it if you would join me again. And if you would ever like to see a specific character reading a book for you, or you have a favorite book you would like to see me, Mo of Many Colors, read for you, please let your parents know to send me a request, and I will happily get right on that. Depending on where you are in the world today, I hope you have a fantastic day, or if you're ready for bed, I hope you have sweet dreams. Thank you so much for joining me here, Mo of Many Colors, at my story time. I will see you all again. Good night.